Hey there and welcome back to Don't Open That Door. Come along with our triumvirate of terror as we descend into darkness, head into horror, and plunge into peril. If you've ever wanted someone to lick your small intestine, haha, well you're in the right place. I'm Justin, and I've been cut by a knife before.
I'm Nico, and I genuinely don't know if this is a hot take, but I think Naruto should have ended with the pain arc.
True facts.
Well, I'm Dan, and I recently got a new mattress, and I like it a lot better than this fucking H.R. Geiger style, whatever the fuck kind of bed shit they got going on here.
We've got a doozy for you today, dear listener, because we're reviewing Crimes of the Future. So this was directed by David Cronenberg, yep, same guy from The Fly, starring Viggo Mortensen as Saul Tenser, Kristen Stewart as Timlin, Lea Seydoux as Caprice, Don McKellar as Whippet, and Welket Bungay as Cope. So we open in the future. Everything goes downhill from here.
Yep.
Honestly?
Human bodies have begun to change and produce new organs. In addition, very few people now feel pain, and few of them still get infections. This will be important later. We see a young boy who's able to consume plastic and household products. His mother then suffocates him with a pillow and calls his father to tell him about it. This will also be important later. Here, we are introduced to Saul Tenser and Caprice, two performance artists. You see, Saul Tenser has a ton of medical complications, he's mad sickly, but his body constantly produces new organs. The partners then publicly remove Saul's new organs in front of an audience, and they've kind of gained a reputation, notoriety, as being this very intense act, which I find to be completely normal. But how about you, Nico?
I don't know how I feel, man. One day, though, Saul grows a new organ, and he takes Caprice over to the National Organ Registry. Not registry, registry. That's what that word is. You see, the government doesn't like all the new organs and changes that are happening in people, and they view it as people branching off from humanity. They're not down with that. So at the registry, Saul and Caprice meet Whippet and Timlin. They have a quick chat about how whimsical all of their names are, and then Saul invites them both to his show that night. And at the show, Whippet and Timlin are just absolutely intoxicated by what they're seeing with this performance, with Timlin in particular noting her actual sexual attraction to the surgery, stating that surgery is the new sex.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's not in this summary because this movie's way too convoluted to concisely tell you every detail. I want everyone to know Saul is not very good at the old sex.
He does, in fact, say that.
He literally says that. So, that being said, Dan, what follows here?
Well, as it turns out, in addition to not being very good at the old sex and being a performance artist, Saul also works as an undercover informant for Cope, who is an agent of New Vice.
How fucked up is it that he does this and he needs a side job?
Yeah, for real.
Real fucking talk.
Ooh. I'm going to come back to that later. But anyways, Cope will now be referred to as Cope the Cop, henceforth. Saul ends up meeting up with a doctor who puts him in touch with Lang, the father of the boy who was killed at the beginning of the movie. You see, Lang is part of a cult/group that believes that body modification and organ growth will lead to the evolution of humanity, which puts them in direct conflict with the government. Lang surgically changed his organs, as have the members of his group, so that they could consume plastics and toxins. Lang's son, despite not having any surgery whatsoever, also shared this capability, which shows that the organs will lead to evolution.
And that kind of spits in the face of everything the government says, even though we know as the viewer, they've really been trying to keep a handle on this because even the government thinks that these new organs will quote unquote stick and lead humanity to diverge. Bearing all this in mind, Nico, this movie can't possibly get any more fucked up, can it?
I don't want to disappoint you, man, but we have such sights to see.
Oh, no.
So, Lang kept the corpse of his 8-year-old son, like you do. I guess I'm not going to question his grieving process.
Okay.
And he asks Saul and Caprice to do an autopsy on it to prove that evolution is possible to the world. Specifically, like, his evolution into a plastic-eating, like, human.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So Saul and Caprice agree, and we're doing an autopsy on a dead kid, folks. Didn't see that coming publicly for everyone to see. And also, there are 2 repair women who fix some of Saul's painful tentacle-looking ass medical equipment / furniture / mattress.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also government assassins who kill the doctor and lead Saul to Lang.
Nice.
And I think they also, like, potentially fuck. It's questionable. This
Question
movie's
marks.
wild. Anyway, tonight's the night of the big show, but as Saul and Caprice cut into the boy's corpse, they find that his organs have been mutilated and mangled to leave a message to Lang. And also, they've been changed so that evolution can't be proven. And I just want to reassure you, dear listener, that the movie's doing a much better job of establishing the world's narrative and logic than we are.
Yeah.
It makes sense in the moment when we are not doing that part of it justice. IMO.
True. Very true. Very true. So, Dan, as hard as it is, I need you to wrap this one up.
Well, the 2 government assassins murk Lang and then leave, while Saul goes to talk to Cope the cop. Cope the cop reveals that Timlin was the one who altered the organs and indicates that she is sexually into surgery with Saul, as if that wasn't obvious from the jump. Saul indicates that Lang's death will actually benefit his cause, and he leaves. We see Saul struggling to eat food until he tries one of the plastic, toxic Willy Wonka bars that Lang and his group eat. The movie ends with Saul's face in rapturous peace as he consumes the Willy Wonka bar with ease. The end.
Well, we'll take this one from the top. How's it look? And oh boy, I gotta say, this is a Cronenberg joint. I think we can all agree.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, it
This
is.
is a Cronenberg joint. There is body horror in buckets here. If you are not down with seeing human organs being taken out, stomachs being ripped open, people with far too many ears on their bodies than they should have, eyes and mouths being sewn shut, in addition to everything fucking else that happens in this movie.
People just replete with lacerations across their entire body as a fashion statement, which I'm not gonna lie, some of that shit looked kind of cool, but still just absolutely the fuck not.
These motherfuckers out here looking like Cenobites from Hellraiser. And
Honestly, yeah.
to that end, I will say, I understand the point the movie's trying to make there, but all I'm saying is weak stomachs need not apply here. Dan, what are your thoughts?
Well, ditto what Justin said, but I will say it all looked good. I mean, not that I've seen that amount of organs and stuff, but it all looked pretty realistic to me. And I mean, this is going to sound real weird.
Oh boy.
But I mean, I feel like anything you say about this movie
Yeah.
is. But you know, when they're like cutting into people and like sort of creating these lacerations and body modifications and stuff, that looked real too.
Yeah.
Not just like, oh, the makeup that was on them looks real, but as people were interacting with that makeup, it looked real as well.
That shit added to the discomfort level and just
Definitely.
like the just sheer cringe that I felt go throughout my body throughout most of when I was watching. Like the way this looked is, in a word, I would say harrowing.
Yeah.
This is a movie that is another like holy shit experience on the same level as uncomfortable to watch, I would say, as Midsummer, the OG Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, this one was, man, it was a marathon, I guess. A marathon of pain. In the best and worst way?
In terms of uncomfort, I would say for me, this tops Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Midsummer, just because,
Agreed.
I mean, there's a part where Caprice is not really wearing any clothes, and it's kind of like a very tense kind of sexual moment, and Saul is using their machine to basically cut her, and she's getting cut like right above the titty line, and that's a scientific term for it.
Yeah.
And as the knife is like gliding across her skin, I couldn't help but think how realistic it looked.
Disclaimer, we're not fucking murderers, but
Well, as somebody who's like butchered meat,
Well,
okay, it's gonna sound bad now, but
who is the well-directed at there, Dan?
no, that's what Justin said. You said your thing, and he was like, well,
as someone who has butchered meat, I will say that the way the knife glides across the skin as it parts, the separation looked uncanny. It looked uncannily real. And like, you ever been like cut by like a rusty metal pipe while trying to be a Power Ranger?
yep,
Nope.
Yeah.
been there.
And like, I have a massive cut running up my thigh. Those who know. And
Shout outs to your boy Tetanus, I guess.
hey, I got my shots, so I'm all good. But point being is,
This episode's sponsored by vaccines.
when my leg got cut open, I remembered how the skin parted. And like I said, like, I know I keep pointing on that, but it's crazy how accurate it was. And the people in this movie, because they don't feel any pain, it's not a painful thing. It's like it's like a tingling sexual sensation to them, at least. But more on that later, because Dan, I want to check in with you on the sound.
I think it sounded great. I mean, similar to how it looked cutting people up. It sounded realistic, I guess.
I'll say that there wasn't really a ton of added music in this one. Oftentimes, scenes didn't have any backing score at all.
Yeah.
Right.
And I enjoyed that. The mood of this movie, generally speaking, was very just bass and not quite downtrodden, but not at all uplifting. Dan mentioned this earlier. There were a lot of kind of earthier tones in this movie, which I found to be interesting. But Nico, sound.
Yeah, I will just echo everything the both of you have said. And the only thing I'm really going to add is that the sound effects they had for that autopsy machine just sounded so just, no, didn't like it. Did not like it at all.
So let's go ahead and dig into this one, shall we? And up top. So the main conflict of this movie is...
Oh my God, she was fragile from Death Stranding.
Yeah, I told Dan that.
Yep.
Leia Seydoux
Damn.
was part of that.
And she definitely ain't fucking fragile in this one, lads.
No,
No.
not at all. So the main conflict of this movie is that the government ostensibly has a stake in stopping evolution, right? They believe that the human body producing new organs, and if those organs stick, leading to new abilities, i.e. the ability to eat plastic and toxins or whatever else, it's going to take humans in a different direction. Humans already can't really feel pain anymore, generally speaking, and can't really get infections anymore, generally speaking. But how do you guys feel about the fact that the government took such a stance? And is that something you think could potentially be replicated in our world? If something like that were to happen, do you think the government would take a stance like that?
I think that the parallels that could be drawn are closer than any of us would like to admit. How the government would probably end up responding in some just awful dystopian measure to just awful means of violence for no reason. But man, this is also just such a wild scenario that it's, I think, a little hard for me to put myself in this scenario, in this situation. I'm not going to lie about that.
I can see the government doing something similar, but not, I mean, I don't think it would play out like this necessarily, but I think that they would probably do something to try to stop or hide or whatever. I mean, hey, We have Area 51. Who the fuck knows what's in Area 51?
I agree. I think that for me, what I see the government more doing is stopping it, but in a more, I guess. Oh, no, you know what? I take it back. Because in this movie, the government didn't want the concept of evolution to even get out there, right? Like they were trying to silence it. There's a silent entity, the registration guys, and Timlin, of course, as well, and New Vice and everything else. So, yeah, I actually do think that could potentially happen. I could see that going down. I could see that going down for sure. Now, Cope. Cope is a cop, but Cope the cop doesn't really seem too deep into it. You know what I mean? He simply asks, and I want to ask this as a larger point, do you think there is an artistry to what Saul does by removing his excess organs? Cope makes the point that he, also has a lesion or a growth on his abdomen, and he questions whether or not that is art. Because how different is that from what Saul does, where he removes his organs? So what do you guys take on that?
I'm glad you asked, because I think that one of the major themes of the movie is its relation to art and artists in general, because of course Saul is an artist, and there are a lot of people who don't understand the art, like Cope the cop. But with a lot of artists in real life, that's kind of how art is, right? A new visual artist, music artist, whatever it may be, that a lot of times they're misunderstood, and people often don't understand the art until much later. And I think that there's something about being an artist and, opening yourself up and like exposing your emotions and everything to the world for them to see that's actually kind of scary and everything. And, this movie kind of like takes that literally. I mean, he literally cuts his body open to expose to everybody. And then lastly, one thing that you mentioned before, Nico, about moonlighting on the side as an undercover investigator. I mean, most artists have a second job. They moonlight as bartenders or hosts or whatever, and I didn't really catch that when I watched it. I don't even know if it was intentional, but I think it kind of fits.
I'm going to say, I think it's funny because I think Saul starts this movie on a different path to everyone else. Saul is one of the few humans who still feels pain. On top of that, Saul is constantly growing all these organs that will kill him. These other people, not so much, but for Saul, yes. So he's constantly removing them. And they mention that his art is an art of rebellion, more so than it is anything else. And I think it's interesting because there is a line that Lang tells Saul where he tells him to stop fighting what his body is trying to guide him to become. And it is interesting because they mention that the new organs that he grows are not so different to cancers and tumors, right?
Glad you brought that up because I was gonna.
And one such way that you can get those things is if you've been exposed to things that are toxic for you, is one such way.
Like
those
Twitter.
Things, that, you can get that. And at the end of the movie, we see that this whole time he's been force feeding himself to eat this food that was never good for him. But as soon as he eats the, plastic toxic Willy Wonka bar, he's good. And I can't help but wonder if some of those organs were metastasizing because of the stuff he was eating that wasn't agreeing with his body. Nico, I know this next topic is probably pretty near and dear to your heart here.
Oh, no.
I want to give you a quote, and I want you to tell me how this quote feels to you, okay?
Oh, no.
Surgery is the new sex.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no.
How is that reflected in the movie?
This movie is one of the most visceral things I've ever seen. And just keeping in mind that most of the characters don't feel pain and juxtaposing that with the absolute delight that's on their faces and in the way that they sound, like a whole lot of people in this movie are just real horny for knives.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And I mean that in the most literal sense of the term, but like the thing that I am still kind of struggling to, or maybe not struggling, but just There's this idea, like y'all were saying about, is this art? And I think there is an argument for it there. I think you certainly could say that, but the thing that's sort of like clashing in my mind against that is just that what you said earlier, Justin, how similar all of this is to cancer fundamentally. Like, it's difficult for me to bridge the gap of thinking of cancer as art, but I mean, I guess you can make art out of anything.
Fair point. Fair point there.
I mean, I don't think it's, even though they do talk about some of the organs as being sometimes cancerous or at least similar, I don't think it's always like that.
Well, insofar as how they generate, the way itself is cancerous, insofar as like it starts out with cells and then it gets to the level where it just like can't stop producing itself. That's what happens to the organs that are made and why they have to get removed.
Right, true. But I mean, isn't that how every organ is made? They start as cells and then, I mean, you can't stop making your organs.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I don't got 4 lungs, my guy.
But you do have an appendix that isn't necessary.
I'm with you there.
2 kidneys, but you only need 1. I mean, like, I think the point is they're creating these new organs that, Lang's point is that our bodies are creating new organs and there's a reason that they're doing it and you're cutting it out. So, like, I mean, cancer, there's no, like, well, as far as I know, there's no good reason for cancer. These organs, there's a purpose for these organs. It's just
I see your point.
Getting rid of them.
I see what you're saying. I think it's a bit of a difference between, like, are you viewing the body as being a sort of willing, intentional agent or just being something that does kind of passively evolve?
Can your body be willing? I mean, at what point does your body will itself to make a heart? I mean, I don't know. Can it will anything? Because it doesn't have a will. It's all mental.
Well, that was
right?
a question in the movie. They questioned if Saul was not producing these through some conscious or subconscious force of will of his own.
I don't think he was.
Or was that just his body growing these things as a need or as a want to evolve? Because we saw...
He said he didn't like them, so I wouldn't like be like, hey, yo, I want to give myself a big fucking sack right here on my chest that I just hate.
No, but I mean, if you think about him like an artist, I mean, when people write a song about a breakup and it becomes a smash hit, do they like going through a breakup? No, but they take it and turn it into art. Does he like creating his own organs? No, but that's also his art, and that's how he lives and produces.
I see what you're saying.
I'm not saying it's right or that you're wrong or anything, and just saying that, like, if you don't like the... I don't know how to say it properly, but...
You can't like the ends and not the means.
This episode's oddly philosophical.
And I mean, like, I think this movie is largely philosophical. I don't think there is a right answer.
Well, yeah, but to swing it back to sexy times. So I noticed that there's a scene where there's people in the alley and they look like they're about to like smash. And they are, but they're cutting. And
instead of smash, they stab.
Yeah. And I was thinking about that because you ever been completely numb, but even when you're numb or you don't feel something like pain, for example, there's still a sensation sometimes. Like, that's the only way I can really describe it. And that must be what they feel. Like, when they mess around in their organs or do all this other stuff, it's interesting because they kind of fuck about. And I'm like, that's so interesting. And I don't think I would ever want to do that.
You ever had surgery and they just do like local anesthesia?
I've never had surgery in my life.
Oh. Yeah, no, I've like had that feeling. I've had like, this is gonna be gross, but I used to have like an ingrown toenail and I had to, get like that shit cut into by a fucking podiatrist, and they, injected some fucking no feely juice, no pain juice, whatever the fuck it's called, medical term, I don't know, at me nerds. And they did the deed, and I could still like feel a sensation, but it was just like a neutral sensation. Like I could tell there was cutting going on, and I could tell that there was like in some case, like, maybe something was like grinding up, but like there was no pain associated with it. It was just like, it's a weird thing to describe, but like
Yeah.
I can for that much at least say that there is some kind of sensation there.
And you almost want someone to go even further so you do feel it. Yeah.
I'm not gonna ask Leia Seydoux to tongue fuck my chest, but yeah.
Well, maybe not your chest, but how about your tummy? I mean, so if someone installed a zipper for easy access.
I forgot about the fucking zipper.
Yeah.
Yeah, in this movie, they put
God,
a zipper.
he has a zipper on his chest.
It's his tummy, Nico.
His tummy, whatever.
And he gets it put there for easy access so that Caprice can tongue up his intestines and whatnot.
I mean, I don't think that's why he installed the
Tongue
zipper.
me up inside. Can't tongue up. Tongue me up inside zipper.
Well, another thing that I really liked about this movie as well, and I gotta give a real quick shout out here. I really appreciated Kristen Stewart as Timlin because I thought that the role was played really
Big
well.
agree.
You would never really suspect that Timlin would do all this stuff to the body and everything else like that of the kid. But at the same time, I just also really enjoyed, like, she was kind of straight up, I'm trying to surgery fuck Saul. And potentially even old fuck Saul. But I don't know if
Yeah.
maybe Saul can't get it up anymore. I don't know what the deal is there. But just in case, all you got to do, I know some herbs he can crush up. He'd be good for like 5 hours.
Give him some gas station boner pills. He'll be good.
Nah, bro. I hit you with that shit from the jungle. You'll never know. You'll never know.
Rhino juice.
Listen,
Whatever the fuck, I don't know.
I can't even tell you because if I tell you, then all the Western countries will go and harvest all these leaves. And then it's going to be a wrap for my people. So nah, can't do it.
Damn.
Yeah, bro. Got fucking 80-year-olds, 90-year-olds out here walking around like they're 25. But
Good for them. Good for them.
past all that, though, I really want to dive into the what would you do? You knew this was coming.
I don't want to dive into this.
Part 1. If you could feel no pain and you didn't get infections anymore. So let's say just for the sake of argument, that translated to you could not get sick, you could not get allergies, and you could not feel pain. What would be some stuff you'd do?
I'd probably take up skateboarding. Because that shit fucking hurts at the beginning.
Okay.
You know, I'm 30. I'm not trying to fall on my ass as much as I used to when I was younger. So why the fuck not?
I feel like I would like walk on fire or some shit.
Yo.
Like just be a badass. I don't know.
So I feel like for me, I would just like try and go all like turbo body dysmorphic and try and look like one of those ultra like buff dudes because pain, you ever work out and then all of a sudden like the next day you're sore as shit?
Of course.
Even if you're like in shape, you push yourself in a workout, you're sore the next day. No matter how in shape you are, you'll feel it. But imagine if you never felt it. What if I could train arms every single day for a year? How big would my biceps get?
At the same time, though, like, would we still be able to feel sensation? Because if I couldn't feel anything, I don't know that I'd be able to play guitar necessarily. Would I?
Yeah, I mean, I take it as you can't feel pain, but you can still feel.
Okay.
Not like you can't feel anything ever. Like there's no sensation.
You know, like pleasure and pain are like the same thing. Different.
Okay, Penhead.
I'm just saying that, like, imagine if, like, you couldn't feel, like, I'm going to just come out here and say it. Imagine if you could never feel sexual pleasure again for the remainder of your days.
That would suck.
Yeah.
And not in a good way.
Well, sucking wouldn't help.
It'd be a lot of it, but it wouldn't help.
It would really blow.
So part 2 to the question now. If you were in this movie, would you throw your lot in with Lang's evolution cult group thing? Or what would you find yourself doing?
Okay, wait. Who am I in this movie? Or maybe not like a particular character or anything, but like, can I eat regular food or not?
Yes, you just don't feel any pain and you
Okay.
can't get infected.
Okay.
That's the same for all of us.
Oh, all right. Well, then I'm already better off than I am right now.
Jesus.
For real, I was thinking that earlier. I thought you were going to say, like, oh, I would eat some fucking shellfish or some shit. Some shrimp.
Yeah. Okay, no, facts. Absolutely, I would go and demolish some crab legs.
Some regular Oreos.
You know, a sandwich, a PB&J or some shit. I don't know.
But Dan, so you're a guy in this universe, regular guy in that universe. So who are you throwing your lot in with? Do you support the evolution struggle?
I think I would, because I might be weirded out at first, and it might take me some time to warm up to the idea. But I mean, if our bodies are naturally evolving, is that not nature? Like, who am I to stop that from happening, you know?
Yeah.
And Lang brought up a good point. I think it was Lang anyways, or maybe I was just thinking about it. But like, they're eating plastic. The world is overrun with plastic and will be in like 50 years. There's going to be plastic everywhere. So if we eat it, doesn't that help?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will say as well that I would also throw my lot in with the evolution people only because the way that I see it, evolution happens when your environment changes. And as humans, we have changed the environment to a point where so many different biomes are becoming toxic and you can't live there anymore, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if we evolved, not now, but like as a theoretical concept, if evolution occurred to make it happen where we could use our environment better, I wouldn't be surprised or opposed to the theory of that. Now, real quick, there's a little bit of pseudoscience here. This all does, in fact, point out physical changes are not inheritable. And so when Lang gives himself plastic eating organs that his son ends up having, that is not science. And they hand wave it, but that is not science. I just wanted to put that out there to the listeners. You can't stretch your body out so you're fucking 8 foot and expect your kid to be an NBA player. It's just not going to happen that way.
I kind of chalk it up in the movie to coincidence that kid just happened to evolve that way and your dad just happens to do that, you know?
Well, I mean, Saul can also eat plastic without the surgery.
Right. True.
You never know. Nico, you never said who you threw your lot in with.
Man, I don't fucking know.
You sound like a new Vice scum to me, Nico. But that's okay.
Maybe.
Nico the cop.
Okay, no, fuck that. Absolutely not. Yeah, okay, I'm with the... You know what? I'm just playing games.
All right.
I know it's plastic love.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. So now, let's Rotten Tomatoes this. Oh boy.
I have no goddamn idea.
Quickly now, tell me, what is the score on Rotten Tomatoes for this one?
42.
69.
Nico wins. It's 80%. Fuck you, Nico.
Damn.
Now, Dan, you were closer to the people. The audience gave it 50%. All that being said, fuck the world. I want to hear what you guys got to say about it. So, where are we ranking this movie? Collect your thoughts, and I'll go first.
Much appreciated.
For real.
I have always held up and enjoyed originality. I enjoy seeing things I haven't seen before. I like being asked questions in new ways. And I cannot state enough how this movie makes me feel in terms of all these different questions. I enjoy being unsettled. And this is body horror, but the point of the film almost doesn't seem to be body horror. It's the questions behind it that I'm still pondering and will be pondering for a while. I'm going to give this movie an 89%. I quite liked it. I thought that everyone in this movie acted their roles impeccably. Lea Seydoux, amazing. Viggo Mortensen, fucking amazing. Kristen Stewart, amazing. Everyone in this movie, Cope the cop, amazing. Like, they were all so good. So that's why I'm saying, like, it's an 89 for me. I really, really, really fuck with this movie.
I don't know how I feel. Like Justin said, this movie made me uncomfortable. And, gut reaction, I don't like being uncomfortable. But after I sit with it for a day or two, I will probably enjoy it more, I like a lot of the questions and the themes that it has, and I really enjoy thinking about it and sort of dissecting that and looking at it from different perspectives and sort of questioning myself about the topics that it talks about. I'm going to give it an 80. Though I think if you ask me in a couple days, I think it might be a little higher. Probably not drastically higher, but maybe a little bit. But right now I'm going to give it an 80.
All right. Nico.
I am going to give this one a 90. I fuck with this for the same reasons that you fuck with this, Justin. And it's also, for me, like you said, Dan, something that appreciated more with time, or I grew to appreciate more with time, rather. And it is now in a very small pantheon of movies that have just made me absolutely viscerally uncomfortable throughout most, if not the entire duration.
Yeah.
It's a fucking experience.
I couldn't agree more. Is this going to be a recommendation from the three of us?
Yeah?
As long as you throw out the caveat, like you said at the beginning, of like, you cannot be weak-stomached on this one.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It's not for everyone.
It's hard for me to, in good conscience, be like, hey, you want to watch a movie about stab fucking? And, like, sexual surgery? Does that sound like a great time to you? Probably not.
If I could get away with it, that would be the title of this episode. You want to watch a movie about stab fucking. But no, that's okay. That's okay. So we do recommend it, just with the caveat. Strong stomach, open mind. Now, Golden Seal?
I would put this in the Golden Seal. I'm going to be thinking about this film for weeks, I guarantee you.
I would put this in the Golden Seal. But Dan, I think maybe no from you.
I think I will.
Damn.
I think that my score is going to go up a little bit in a couple days, like I mentioned. And I agree with what Nico just said. I think I'm going to be thinking about it quite a lot. And if a movie can make me do that, I think it's a great movie.
The last movie to do that for me was Possession. And that was a minute ago.
Yeah.
I am curious about what... Well, okay, so never mind.
No. What's up?
Well, I was going to say... So first off, real quick. All right, I've stamped it with the Golden Seal of Approval. And perhaps the biggest twist... I did not think this was going to get that at all.
Not even a little.
Absolutely did not.
Boy, howdy.
You know, it's fascinating to me at how we surprise ourselves sometimes on this podcast.
Yeah.
You know? Like, how the fuck does that happen?
But that being said, it's interesting. And just as a quick thought here, this movie had a budget of $27 million and was a pretty dismal failure with 4.5 out of the box office. This is per Wikipedia. Now, this movie came out in 2022, so as recently as September 9th in the UK. So we can expect it to receive residuals, and it may catch on as a cult classic with the Blu-ray release in the future.
I mean, I think it will be. It's Cronenberg, and I mean, of course, some of his movies didn't do so well, but I think this fits into the good and talked about cult classic Cronenberg.
Exactly right. So if you've seen this and you also need therapy, hit us up. We're on social media. We're on Twitter and Instagram at DOTD Horror. We're also on Facebook, of course, under Don't Open That Door. Plus, you can catch everything we've done on our website, which is dotdhorror.com. But till then, keep one another safe.
Do not do anything you see in this movie.
Yeah, do not try anything of this at home. And as always, dear listener, don't open that door. Bye.
Don't open that zipper.